Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Movie Mates podcast. I am Matthew, joined by my wonderful co-host and best friend.
Callum.
Hey man, great to see you. So today it's the conclusion of our arc of Pixar films, man, isn't it?
Sad to see it go, but I'm looking forward
Emotional?
to moving on to different things.
Yeah. It's a bittersweet ending because we can move on to pastures new, but it's the sadness that we're leaving these films behind until they release the next film. I don't know what that'll be, but
That will be Soul starring Jamie Foxx.
Oh, okay. Cool. So I'm just gonna pass over to my good buddy here, and he's gonna explain what movies we're gonna be talking about today. So Callum, off to you, mate.
Yes, so for the last few weeks, we've obviously been covering the entire oeuvre of the Pixar animation studios. This is our final part today, and if you want to hear our thoughts on the other films, check out the other Pixar episodes in the playlist on our
Yeah.
channel. Today we will be talking about Coco, The Incredibles 2, and Onward. Uh, Three films which I had seen both Incredibles 2 and Onward, and I hadn't seen Coco, but I was very excited to see it. Uh, and I'm looking forward to talking to you about them today. Which of these had you seen leading up
I
to
had
today?
seen Incredibles 2 and I had seen about half of Coco, but um yeah, like I hadn't seen Onwards. This is my first viewing of that, and I'm really excited to talk about these ones today because it's sort of like a mixed bag of films, but there's some really good ones in here for me and some okay, decent ones. So it's going to be a good episode. I think we'll have a lot of good and interesting thoughts in this. So yeah, thanks to everyone who has supported the channel recently. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and email us at moviematespodcast@gmail.com. The email will be in the description. And yeah, comment your thoughts on these films down below. We'd be really interested to hear your opinions. So yeah, buddy, do you wanna hop in with our first film of the day then? Yeah.
Yes, so the first film
Yeah.
for today is Coco, a film, as I said, I had not seen and was very excited to see. And I suppose overall was a little underwhelmed, which will be a
Really?
theme
Okay,
for
okay.
today.
Fair enough, fair
I,
enough.
I don't know. I expected to love it, and I liked it quite a bit. So it wasn't a disappointment. It wasn't a letdown. I just didn't get from it what I wanted.
It didn't hit that mark for you then?
It wasn't a perfect film, but a film rarely is. But
Good
I
point.
had a great time with it. How was your experience today or yesterday or whenever you watched it?
So I watched this film yesterday, 2 days ago, and it's one of my favorite Pixar films. If I'm honest, I think it's a really interesting concept, and I think this is probably the best looking animated film of all time. Hot take.
Hot take. I would say especially like the animation of like the leaves as he's walking across the bridge to the spirit world. I think that animation is spectacular. So
Yeah,
yeah, I would agree with you on that.
yeah, man, and that's great to hear because like I think it's a really interesting concept, and it's a similar movie in the sense that it's more of like a film about music. So in the sense, it kind of reminded me of like Yesterday a little bit, in the sense that like a character like hero worships a particular band or singer, and I really like that element of it. And it's just about a guy who or a kid who just follows his passion, and I love that. I think it's a great message in there. But there are some characters I have a particular disdain for.
Please do share.
Miguel's grandmother seems absolutely horrible to him.
Yeah, I guess. Uh, Yeah, I mean, just to add sort of context to that, the family has a huge disdain for music in general,
Sure.
uh, due due to Mama Coco's father having left his family to pursue a career in music.
Yeah.
But that's sort of a baffling correlation to make, that because a bad dude abandoned his family uh, to pursue music, they blame music for that. It's like, no, blame him. Like
Yeah.
I really don't understand the correlation with saying, nah, music's in the bin. Like I don't get it.
Yeah, man, that's a great point. And like the film does have plenty of twists and turns in there, so I'm excited to hear your thoughts generally, man. Do you have any opening remarks or anything?
I mean, yeah, it's mostly in agreement with you, because I would say the first quarter of the film or so is just dedicated to showing that Miguel has an incredible passion for music, that is, severely quashed by his family, who just
Sure.
want to have him pursue the family trade of shoemaking, which I think is fair. Like I think he should have given it a fair go. If they're really passionate about it, and it's the family trade, I think he should have given it a go. With the intention to eventually follow his dreams. Or just continue it as a hobby. Either way, I think there was room for him to pursue that whilst also respecting that their background as shoemakers. I mean, I suppose he doesn't like outrightly, reject it. So I don't think there's ever a moment where you don't side with Miguel. Like, there's no moral complexity where you're like, oh, but maybe his family's right. It seems like he's always respectful of his family, but they're never really respectful of him.
It's a great point, mate. I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Callum, because in many regards, like the Miguel character kind of reminds me of Remy from Ratatouille, and the film is quite similar to Ratatouille, I think, in the sense that it's more of a study of a specific country in the way Ratatouille is to France and this film is to Mexico, and also like the hero worshipping that Miguel has for Ernesto de la Cruz and Remy has for what's the chef in that film called again?
Gusto.
Gusto. So I think they're very similar films, and that's probably why I like it so much. And like they're I think Ernesto or Miguel's shrine to Ernesto de la Cruz.
Creepy.
It's borderlines on creepy, but I think it's quite endearing. I think it's quite endearing, and I think yeah, like we'll get onto the twists and turns in there about his heritage and stuff. But I think this movie it's a very special movie to me. I really liked it.
Well, as you brought up Ernesto de la Cruz, we may as well talk about one of the earlier scenes in the film, and
Sure.
probably the funniest, where he is crushed to death by a bell. Uh,
That's pretty good.
but
That's pretty good.
but I would say their description of that he was crushed by a bell kind of is kind of misleading, because someone dropped that on him,
Yeah, someone
and we
killed
don't
him.
we don't. Yeah, I would have loved to have seen the aftermath, like that guy goes to prison for manslaughter. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I like to see. I would have liked to see that as a weird side story.
Yeah, man. Like this film does have some interesting side characters, doesn't it? Specifically that guy. I'd love to hear his story in a future film. And also, I really like Dante the dog. I think he's absolutely adorable. One of my favorite characters in the film.
Yeah, I fully agree. Uh, and I suppose to move back to his family, did you have anything further to say about why you have such a disdain for Miguel's grandmother?
It's just, I think I think it's important in generally, in life, not to like hold grudges, unless there's like a particular reason for that, or it's personal to someone, and I don't think it's personal for Miguel's grandmother to see Miguel play the guitar. Like it's anyone can play any like it's a widely accessible thing. He probably learned to play it eventually after he left the family. So I don't know. I think when she smashes his guitar, I thought that was unnecessary because in many ways she's crushing his dreams, and it's like it's just I don't know. It didn't sit right with me. I think her character is very aggressive.
Yes, and I in that moment where she smashed the guitar, I sort of agree with the family's sentiment that it shouldn't matter whether De La Cruz is his great grandfather, because
Sure,
regardless he was a bad dude because he left his family. So that it shouldn't matter. He still shouldn't be worthy of Miguel's respect, regardless of the fact if he's a famous musician or not.
sure.
He hasn't earned the respect because he was a bad dude who left his family. So obviously we found out that Ernesto de la Cruz isn't his great grandfather, but even had he been, he wouldn't have been worthy of respect. But
It's a great point.
uh, in contrast to that, basically, as you were saying, they still don't have the right to destroy his dreams.
It is brutal. Like the film does have sort of like a lot of complex adult themes in there as well, and the film did make me feel really bad for people like Hector and people like him who don't have their photo and they're forgotten by their family because that would be very if this is if this was the way the afterlife worked. I mean, I don't know. It could be like it would be quite sad, wouldn't it, to be forgotten?
Yeah, because I imagine it would happen quickly enough to me. Just because
I don't
I
say
think I
that.
think
That's
no, I think in the future I'll just be not of note, which is fine. It is just kind of sad that you would face the final death that we see in this film now.
yeah. Yeah, people always have the podcast to listen back to you.
Oh yeah. Unfortunately, we haven't done the face reveal, so they couldn't like stick my face up on a wall.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point, actually. We'll have to do the fish reveal sometime,
Yeah, definitely.
maybe.
So we see Miguel cross over to the spirit world, and in his attempt to return, he has to be given the blessing of a family member on the spirit world side,
Sure,
and he is given the blessing of his great great grandmother, and returns to the human world for 2 seconds, as we see, and he's just a fucking idiot, isn't he? You know, either don't accept the terms and stay in the spirit world, or accept the terms and return to the human world. It was just hilarious to see him accept them, go back to the human world, and then immediately grab the guitar and be like, "Ah, yeah, back to the
yeah,
talent show." It's
yeah,
like as though the experience of like literally, basically dying, being sent to the spirit world, like did not change him whatsoever. I get obviously after he returns from his entire day in the spirit world, he seems to he seems to have changed as a person somewhat, at least
sure.
in his perspectives on family. But you know, I would have thought even two minutes in the spirit world and like my entire life is changing.
Good point. The spirit world seems like a really cool place. I think staying there for a bit would be pretty cool.
Yeah, it doesn't seem horrible. I mean, they talk about like one character says like you borrowed my van, so clearly it must just like work like normal life
Yeah, there's like
because
a working ecosystem there at least. There's people have
yeah,
jobs.
there's parties and you can be with your family and you're immortal until people forget you. It seems like a pretty sweet deal.
Sweet deal, absolutely, man, absolutely. And I think that's where the film's biggest strength is. It's a beautiful message about remembering where you came from and your family heritage and stuff. And that's something maybe I didn't appreciate before. So it's funny, like films can make you like check yourself and stuff. So I think it's a great message there.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the only issue with it is that it doesn't really separate, the good people from the bad people
It's a
because we
good point.
obviously see that Ernesto de la Cruz that is there and he's a murderer and a thief,
Yeah,
and he's just there partying and no one knows the truth about him. So it kind of seems weird that you can just coast in the afterlife and like no one knows all the sins that you committed.
it's a great point, bro. That's a really good point. Like that was a really dark twist for a Pixar film, especially to have, the hero of the film be a murderer. Like imagine in Ratatouille, like Gusteau was like giving everyone salmonella or something from the food. That would be
I
dark.
was gonna say feeding people, and you went like a
Yeah.
slightly a
But
slightly lighter route.
I really respected the film for that dark twist there because I didn't actually expect that. I didn't think Ernesto was going to be his great great grandfather, but I didn't expect him to be a murderer. Like I thought that was really compelling.
Yeah, I accidentally read right before I started watching the film on Wikipedia that Hector was his great grandfather, but I did expect it to just be uh like a misunderstanding. I never expected it to be that Ernesto de la Cruz had like basically usurped the role of Hector.
Sure.
Like taking his place in life with his music and his guitar and his success. So yeah, it was a huge twist to me, and I did not see it coming at all. Uh, and I was just so surprised because I think the film works without that twist as well.
It's a good
I
point.
I, I don't think
Great
it
point.
needs a villain. I think just the message is clear enough and it has a good enough sentiment that I don't think it needed a villain, but it worked 100%.
Absolutely, man, absolutely. And I think the film builds such a great universe, and there's so many fantastic visuals in there. We see Ernesto's like guitar-shaped swimming pool. I love that, and I don't know. There are things about the Ernesto character like you can criticize. Like he just accepts that Miguel is his great great grandson out of nowhere. It's just like, yep, sure. And I mean, I suppose in that sense, like he's quite. He's not a smart. He's not a smart guy. In the film
Yeah,
and stuff, but yeah, I liked him.
and also like his house is a temple to his own arrogance. Like
Yeah.
he's playing his own movies on the walls as he's partying.
Can
And
you
I was like,
imagine like
I
someone
was like, whether he's a murderer or not, I hate him.
that's like us if like someone came over to our house and we're just like playing episodes of the Movie Mates podcast on the walls.
Or like yeah, like instead of music, it's just like and now to talk about Pixar Part Six.
Yeah, I'm
Like
now to talk about Artemis Fowl.
yeah, I don't think that liven the party up too much.
No.
Like just and now our thorough analysis on Transformers 5 the last night.
Oh
Like
God, oh
that
God.
yeah that we're not going to be partying the night away to that. But
No.
yeah, regardless of whether he was a murderer, he was the villain in my eyes.
Absolutely.
Uh, but in the endeavor to get to that part of the film, Miguel and Hector have to perform in the talent show
Yeah.
within the spirit world. And right before Miguel begins to perform, he seems quite nervous and he's sort of getting like booed. And I've never understood like the correlation between nervousness and lack of talent. If someone gets onto a stage and appears nervous, like people are always like apprehensive or boo or something.
Yeah.
As though that means that they're talentless. I've just never understood that.
Yeah, it's a common misconception, isn't it? And one thing about that scene that I really loved is the winning band actually do Miguel a really great favor, and letting him go up to like sort of Ernesto's castle where the party is at, and I really respected that because I sort of expected him to go down the route of like either they're not gracious winners or they're never seen again, and I kind of like that they were like genuinely nice people.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's a wholesome vibe to it. I guess like they know that they're already dead, so I guess it doesn't matter. Like you
Yeah,
know,
that's a good point.
they can just be like, yeah, let's just be nice to everyone. I mean, I guess people could do the opposite and just be like, well, we're already dead. We can be the worst people possible, which I'm
Yeah,
sure a lot of the people there are. But yeah, just oh well. We're just here for a party. May as well
yeah,
bring along another guest.
absolutely, man.
Uh, but we've briefly touched on sort of Ernesto's evil plot, but just to go into a bit more detail, we talked about sort of the idea in Love Rosie and other films where a character intercepts a letter and then keeps it for themselves and doesn't burn it. And I think Ernesto takes this to the next level by putting his own murder plot into a film that he stars in. I
Such a
think that's
fucking
taking
idiot.
like that concept to another level where you're just fully publicizing like the
Yeah.
murder plot that you committed.
Also, he has Hector's picture in his pocket. Just burn it, mate.
Yeah, I mean, just putting it in your breast pocket where anyone can grab it, just yeah, it's painful to watch. Not gonna lie. I mean, not it's not an actual like deal breaker of the movie. It just to see that I'm like, if you're so desperate for him to not be brought into the human world, but also what does it matter because like the spirits can't interact with the human world. So whether he was brought to the human world or not, like it's not like he can reveal Ernesto's secrets.
That's a really good point, and I suppose we'll move on to Ernesto's plan being rumbled in the actual world, in the human world. And one thing I also wanted to mention to you was, oh no, it's escaped me. What was it? Oh yes, okay. So the film gives, well, the film is titled Coco, and I think that's really interesting given that she's barely in the film and she's not at all like a main character. Like I suppose a lot of people, I certainly thought that Miguel was called Coco before I saw this film, and I think it's a really interesting title. Like the film is, in many ways it is about her, but in many ways it isn't. So I thought that was really compelling.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, it didn't dawn on me obviously until they mentioned that that was her name, and I thought that was so interesting. And then obviously we realized by the end that it all ties together with the reason that Hector's being forgotten is because Coco's forgetting him, and the whole sort of the climax of the film is Miguel getting her to remember Hector.
Yeah,
But what sort of confused me was I don't even really understand why Hector is being forgotten because they sort of say that people are remembered by their families telling stories about them, and
sure.
I mean I know they don't mention him by name, but I mean they passed on the story of their great grandfather being a piece of shit every year, so surely he can't be forgotten.
It's a good point, man. It's a good point. I don't know whether in this universe they need photographs to come into the world, but yeah, he's definitely not being forgotten. So it's interesting how they actually manifest in the human world.
Yeah, because they say you need to have your photo on the wall to be able to like lead yourself back to the human world. So yeah, they definitely need a photograph up for him to cross the bridge. But like just to continue to exist in the spirit world, all he needs to do is be remembered. And I feel like telling stories about him being a piece of shit surely should be enough
Yeah.
for him to be remembered by. Even though
Also,
it's a
yeah,
terrible legacy, but it's a memory.
it's a great point, but it's a great point, and it sort of brings on to me the idea that Ernesto de la Cruz, he can't really die in that world because everyone knows who he is.
Yeah, do you mean like his reputation won't die?
Yeah, I don't think you can't. I don't think you can be. We see in the film that he's killed by like a giant bell in a similar vein.
Again, yeah.
Yeah, like ironically, but I don't know that. I don't think that could kill him. I don't think he's. Is he dead? Do you think? Because surely, like, because his legacy still lives on, even though it's a tarnished legacy of him being a thief and a murderer. Like it's for me, it's still for me like it's like he'd still be remembered in a similar vein to how Hector is. So I don't know. What do you think? Do you think he's dead?
Yeah, yeah, I think he definitely continued to. Well, I mean, he's dead already, but yeah, I think he definitely continued to exist in the spirit world. But do you think they have like spirit jail? Like,
Imagine, yeah.
because I
They
mean,
have police, I
they have
suppose.
like security guards and that like weird like post office like
Yeah,
insurance management whatever
yeah,
thing like where Miguel gets told how to go back to the human world. So I
yeah.
mean, if they have security guards there, maybe they have prison.
It's a good point. That's a good point. I suppose he could. Yeah, he's in prison. But how did you feel about like in the human world his plan being rumbled? I thought that was a little bit of a letdown.
What like I mean, would you have liked to see him win? Like,
I wouldn't have liked to see him
how,
win, but it seems a bit like I don't know how they would have conveyed that information to the public, and also like I think it would have been interesting to see like not necessarily the consequences, but the fact that like they can't make everything right. Like the film sort of makes you think that Hector is gonna die, but they don't. So and they subvert that. So I would have liked to maybe see the consequences of you don't always win. And Ernesto de la Cruz is still famed in the world, but like the Miguel and his family don't care because they know the truth about Hector. So I don't know. I would have liked to see that displayed.
yeah, I mean, I can sort of see that they could probably prove that the songs were Hector's. They say that the lyrics to the songs were in the letters to Coco. So if you could properly like date the letters, I guess that would prove it. But I don't know how they're proving that he was murdered by
Yeah.
Ernesto, because I mean, how do you prove that? I mean, I don't even understand how how he was able to poison Hector, because he poured a glass, he poured a shot of something and then poured one for himself, gave it to Hector, and then he drank it as well. So like, where did
Yeah.
the poison come in? Like, was it a Scotch glass like already filled with rat poison? Like, how did he prepare for that contingency? Like, he didn't even know until he walked into the room that Hector was planning on leaving, and then he
Yeah.
pours a shot of this. It's like I have no understanding of how he poisoned him.
He just says has some rat poison just in case anyone decides to cross
Like,
him.
I guess, but then it's not like he poured like a shot for Hector and then didn't drink his. Like, he did drink it.
Yeah, maybe that's the conspiracy of the film. Like Ernesto has a twin brother who was killed by a bell, but the actual Ernesto died by a rat poison as well. That'll be funny.
Oh yeah, yeah, lovely. So I would say that the most emotional moment that they want you to feel strongly towards is where Miguel sings "Remember Me" for Coco.
Yeah,
And I was just wondering, do you think that you felt the emotions that Pixar intended you to?
I did. I really liked that scene. I thought it was really sweet, really beautiful, and I think it's a great song. So I did. Did you? Yeah, did you?
I did not enjoy the song, admittedly, lyrically, but I enjoyed Miguel's performance of it, and it did make me feel emotional, but I don't think I got to the level that they wanted from me.
Fair enough, man. I respect that. I respect your honesty. And uh, do you think the film? Yeah. Do you think overall it does miss the mark slightly for you?
I mean, I would say it has probably my favorite message of any Pixar film, about the importance of family, and the idea uh, that you can not forgive someone, but you don't want to forget them.
Great point.
Because there's a lot of people who I will not forgive, but I have grudges against, and it's important to remember them because life experience builds your personality. So
Sure.
you don't want to forget like integral parts of your life,
It's a great point.
just because the person wasn't someone that you liked. Uh, so I think it probably has the best message of any Pixar film. It just wasn't what I was expecting, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, that's a really great point, buddy. And do you have any concluding points?
I've said all that I have on.
No worries, man. So do you want to hop into ratings then, dude? What would you give out of 10?
I think it's a great film. As you said, one of the best animations of all time. Definitely, I would say of Pixar. And yeah, I love how they focus this on one country, like you said, similar to Ratatouille. And yeah, I love almost everything about this. I was really surprised by the villain twist. I honestly just thought it was going to be a misunderstanding about who Miguel's great great grandfather was. So I was sort of taken aback by that reveal. So it was fully able to surprise me, unlike any other film really,
Sure.
in the Pixar filmography. So I'll give it a solid 9 out of 10.
Mate, I thought that was a really great review, Callum. I thought that was great, buddy, and I agree with everything you've said, dude. And for me, I just love this universe. It's so expansive, and there's so much. I think there's definitely room for a sequel here. And I don't know. I just love the characters they create. Hector was my personal favorite. Hector and Dante, and Miguel was great as well. And like you said, the fact that it focuses on one country really appealed to me. I love that. So I'd give it a 10 out of 10. One of my favorites.
I was expecting a 10 out of 10 from that, honestly.
One of my favorites, mate. So I suppose, did you want to move into arguably the most anticipated Pixar sequel of all time?
Yes, I would certainly agree with you on that. And yes, let's talk about Incredibles 2.
Let's do it, man. Let's do
Mm,
it.
not a huge fan of this one.
Not me neither.
Uh,
I like it
I
less
mean,
than I did.
yeah. So obviously, this was hotly anticipated, in the works for 14 years. Uh, and yet, like, we'll talk about it at the very end, but like, still, Brad Bird complains, "Oh, I didn't have enough time for production. That's why it's shit." And I'm like, mate, 14
14 years.
years.
Yeah,
I know, like, obviously that isn't, the production time, but he had 14 years of development.
sure.
And yeah, I'm unimpressed. Uh, so obviously the film begins, right where the first one left off, and I just sort of wondered. It was sort of this was sort of a big debate amongst fans as to whether they wanted it to open with the Underminer fight, or whether they wanted, uh, you know, a 15 years later, well, I was going to say flash forward, but just sort of a return to the present for us.
Sure.
Uh, and I was just wondering, what would you have found more interesting, like the story that was presented here, or one that took place 15 years later, and maybe had Jack as the villain? Because I that was sort of the big anticipation. I think a lot of people wanted that sort of spin on it.
You know what, Callum? It's so interesting that you mentioned that, dude, because before this movie came out, I'd watched a lot of theories and stuff on where it could potentially go, and I 100% would have loved a 15 years later approach. And rather than have I would have liked to see Dash as the villain, because there are definitely certain undertones in the first film and where he agrees with Syndrome's plan. Like
Loves cold-blooded murder of people in the forest.
yeah, yeah, and no, like I think potentially have Syndrome and Dash team up in this film. I don't know how you could get Syndrome back. He's a pretty smart guy. Probably has hologram tech or something. And I would have liked to see that, because I think this film's an incredible disappointment, both in the villain of the film, but also just the general plot. It's just a bit of a nothing. Like it seems it's very self-congratulatory for me, and that's not something I would expect from Brad Bird, because he's such a talented director, and he definitely has this film definitely has potential. But it was just such a letdown, probably one of my biggest letdowns of all time.
Yeah, I mean, just the thought that you have 14 years to make a good film, whereas like, and I hate to make I hate myself for making this example, but I mean, literally, I would say Cars 3 is a better sequel to Cars 2 than this is to The
I
Incredibles,
agree. I agree. Yeah,
and with like one third of the amount of time between them. So yeah, I would agree with you. This is probably one of the biggest cinematic letdowns. Uh, besides Avengers Endgame, I would say this is the biggest one.
fair enough. Fair enough, man. And
And us in the UK, we actually had this film delayed by over a month because of
remember
the
that?
World
Yeah.
Cup, and I was not happy about that whatsoever.
Did you get any spoilers
I
there?
had to basically delete all of my
Okay.
forms of internet so that I didn't encounter any spoilers, and I wish I hadn't bothered, because
Yeah,
nothing exciting or interesting happens in this film that could have been
I
spoiled.
agree. And I think something about this film is it's I've got this. I think I've got this point later on down in my notes. I'm trying to find it here. Where are we? Where are we? Anyway, I feels like the film abandons the 1960s and 50s retro aesthetic, because in this film we see so much modern technology that we don't even have, and I just thought that was absolutely ridiculous. And also, I think the film completely undermines its audience, in the sense that the villain of the film her name literally spells out evil endeavor.
Yeah, I did write that down because I was like, bit on the nose, not just a bit on the nose, quite embarrassing. Yeah,
Yeah,
it is. It's kind of condescending to the audience to go, oh, but you didn't see
yeah,
that little sneaky reference.
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
I
exactly,
did.
man. I think the film, even compared to the first one, it's aimed at a much younger audience than the first, because the first deals with a lot of complex themes about like a midlife crisis and you know, Bob and Helen dealing with running a family. But in this film, the family split up for most of the film, and it even seems like the reintroduction of supers. Like, where the hell are all these supers coming from? I thought Syndrome wiped them all out in the first movie.
Yeah, I guess this is the new generation, but yeah, I don't really get where they're getting their powers from if they're presumably their parents were killed.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's just I think it's I don't mean to keep on hating the film because I think it is okay, like it's decent, but it's just I don't know, it's such a letdown for me. Like I think it's such aimed at such a young audience.
Yeah. I know I would say a big difference from this film and the first film is that in the first film I was, all for the superheroes. I was like, yeah, I don't understand why superheroes would possibly be illegal. Clearly they're
Sure.
an asset to society. But in this film, I was just as soon as it opened, I was like, yep, they should be illegal. Because I mean,
Okay.
as it was pointed out by the police, the Underminer was just after money, and the banks are insured, and they caused so much structural damage to the city that could
That's a
have been
good point.
completely avoided.
And you know what it is about that scene, buddy? I don't get me wrong. I think that scene is really good. I love how the Underminer action scene is told from another perspective. And the Frozone ice effects are amazing. I would argue that Frozone's probably my favorite character of the film. But the only thing is, I think they really, yeah, like you said, they missed the mark with the supers, and I think they should probably be the laws should certainly be a lot stricter on them, if not like making them illegal. But I don't know. I think they severely underpowered Mr. Incredible in this film. Like he seems like just. He's a strong dude. Don't get me wrong, but like the Underminer like catches one of his punches. Like this guy stopped a train before. You know what I mean?
I was gonna say he stopped the trade, but like it takes all that he has and like two other superheroes to help him stop like the mining device that's let
Yeah.
loose on the city. Like I would say that's a lot easier to stop than a train.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like I don't know, I have mixed opinions in that opening scene because I love how it's told from a different perspective initially, but also like Helen says to the kids like stay with Jack, but literally like 3 months ago, in which the film's set timeline set, like they all fought Syndrome together and won. So I don't know.
Yeah, like the kids were absolutely integral to the success of that fight, and now they're like, "Nah, you kids are useless. Like, look after
Yeah,
the baby."
I can get because she's a parent, she wants to protect their safety and stuff and wants to ensure their safety, but I don't know. I'm just a little disappointed.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Love it, man.
I have way too many notes on this film.
Go for
It's
it,
so
man. Go
shit.
for it.
Like, it's not that bad, but like, I don't know. I just have too much to say. Uh,
Go for it, buddy. Go for it.
yes. So, obviously they reference the destruction of their home from the first film, having been crushed by a jet that exploded. And I was just sort of baffled as to the fact that Bob was an insurance agent, and it doesn't seem that they had home insurance.
Yeah, yeah. He should get some sort of staff discount, surely, for insurance.
Yeah, I know he's eventually fired from the company, but I would have thought he'd have a bit of a contingency in place.
Absolutely.
It seems not.
What are you doing, Bob? What are you doing?
Clearly not being a good dad. Let's be honest. Uh, so yeah, as you pointed out, Evelyn Dever, equal endeavor. Bloody get it, kids.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Oh,
hilarious. Uh, and we're introduced to both her and her brother Winston. And Winston says that the characters, he's a nostalgic superhero fan, so he recruits Mr. Incredible, Elastigirl, and Frozone to be the new to lead the new age of heroes and to help bring them out of retirement. Uh,
yeah.
and he says, don't worry, as a company we're insured, so like whatever damage you cause, that'll be fixed. Would it? Because I mean, they're committing criminal damage, like they're committing a crime. How do you insure criminals?
It's a really good point, man. That's a really good point. I never actually had thought of that because yeah, like Winston seems to like assume a kind of authority over the supers, where like he assures them all the financial problems are solved, and they even gives Bob and Helen a new house and stuff. But yeah, the criminal act is I don't know. It's probably hard to ensure that, near
Yeah, because like
impossible.
you insure a bank against criminal acts, you insure your house against criminal acts. You don't insure the criminals. You
Yeah,
know, like I don't
it's
understand.
a great point. That's a really good point.
So we had seen the emergence of Jack's powers in the first film, but they're in full effect here. And the first example that we have of that is where Jack fights the raccoon, and I think that this was one of the first pieces of footage released for the film
Yeah.
to sort of build hype, and it's nowhere near as funny as this film clearly thinks it is.
I actually, I don't know. I really did like that scene, but I think I think the film sort of overuses the Jack humor way too much.
Yeah, I think once you see one power for the first time, that joke's done. Like I would say that the funniest power that we see from him is where he shapeshifts into Edna.
Yeah, I
Like
like
I
that.
would say that's by far the funniest part of his powers presented.
Yeah,
But I mean, it's not that funny to see him use laser vision. It's not that funny to see him do this, that, and the other.
yeah,
I would say the shape shifting and maybe the devil form and maybe where he like you know where they think he's falling to his death and then stops himself. I would say that's probably where the comedy ends, and then the rest of it's just tedious.
yeah. I like big Jack. I think that's pretty funny as well. One thing I do love about this film is how Elastigirl uses her superpowers in this because it's definitely taken up a level compared to the first film, and she's sort of the main character almost. And I think they handled Helen really, really well in this film. She's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I would say that the only upside to this film, as opposed to the first film, is the action scenes are far better. Because I
Yeah.
was sort of underwhelmed by the first film's action scenes, especially the final battle in the city. I think it's a bit dull. Just everyone banding together to fight a robot. But I thought that every single action scene, especially Elastigirls, were incredible.
Absolutely. I think that's down to the anime. Ah, yeah, yeah. I think that's down to the anime. Oh, yeah. Another thing. Apparently, the first film is called The Incredibles, but this one
And
is
this is Incredibles too.
yeah. I thought that was strange. I don't know.
Okay, sure.
But like no, and it's down to the animation of the film because the animation's pretty flawless as well. Especially, I really like Frozone's effects in this. I think they're fantastic, and him and Elastigirl are my two favorites of the film.
Yeah, I agree with you. And who I would say is my least favorite of the film is once again Bob Parr.
Why? Well, I'm interested to hear why.
I mean, just the I like some people said that he came off as like a sexist because he was sort of there is sort of a confusion where he sort of thinks that he should be doing the missions and uh and Helen should be staying at home. But
Yeah,
I don't think it comes from a sexist place. I think he thinks he's a better hero than his wife. I don't think it's to do with he thinks he's better because he's a man. I
good
think
point.
he just has a huge ego. I don't think it is gender related. I think he's just an egomaniac. Uh,
Yeah,
I suppose he's better in this film because we do see him actually try at being a dad.
yeah.
But I feel like they washed away all the character development that was felt by the end of the first film as to the importance of family, and he had to relearn that here.
It's a good point. That's a really good point, and that's one thing I had down in my notes to ask you. Like, do you think Bob has the right to be angry at Helen's success? And I do agree with you in the fact that I don't think it comes from a sexist place. We see in the first film, in the opening scene of the interviews, he's quite an arrogant guy, and to be fair, he has the skills and the powers to back it up. Like, but I don't know. I thought his anger it was slightly misplaced in the film, but I do think you can tell he is genuinely happy for his wife. He just wishes he could share her success rather than him have all the glory. I think he wants to share it.
Yeah, I think in his optimum preferred scenario that they would both be doing the hero thing, but it's just if one of them is going to be doing it, he wants to be that one doing it.
Yeah,
Uh, but I sort of like to see it. I really like seeing domesticated Bob, where he has to figure out how to take care of his kids. I thought that was a really interesting place to take it, and
agreed.
probably one of my favorite parts of the film.
Completely, buddy. I completely agree, Calum. And the fact that he becomes like more disheveled as the film continues. I thought it was quite funny.
Yes,
Like he has like bloodshot eyes and stuff. I thought that was great.
like where he shows up at Edna's just dead.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. I love that.
And I made notes early on about like Screenslaver's plans, but we'll talk about that further on because we'll just talk about how that's just absolute
Bullshit.
nonsense.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in a few minutes, but uh, I'm just wondering why we see Jack Jack, as we mentioned, his more of his powers, and what one power that we see used again is him in his devil form, and I'm just wondering why it looks like rubbery shit in this film. Like very specifically, just him in his devil form just looks like total garbage.
I didn't pick up on that, man. I'll have to rewatch that bit because, like, in the first film, I remember that being one of my favorite forms of Jack Jack. So it's a bit of a disappointment in this film that it was considered like rubbery shit. Yeah,
Yeah, because in the first film he's sort of like red aggressive like devil like I don't remember if he has horns, but it's definitely that vibe. But
yeah.
in this he has like a full like ginger barnet, and he's like he just looks like he just looks
Let
like
me Google it here actually.
a monster from Monsters Inc. Like he looks he's not scary at all.
Yeah, let me just Google it because that is interesting. Jack Jack Devil Baby. Oh yeah, it looks awful. Oh Jesus. There? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that one.
It looks really bad. Why? I don't like that, man. I don't like it.
No, I don't like it at all.
In the first film, it is way better, isn't it?
Oh, 100 times better. Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, man, back to your notes, dude. Any other points?
Yeah, so somehow this film manages, however, there are a lot of fair criticisms to be made about the
Yeah.
film, but somehow to me it made the character of Edna even better. Seeing
Right
this
now.
entire new side of her as Auntie Edna
I
was
love
was
that.
probably one of the funniest parts of the film.
I love how much she cares for Jack Jack. She makes him like a raspberry lavender sort of like foam suit, which I loved. And she seems quite caring as well. She's obviously like Brad Bird is excellent as Edna. She's one of my favorite characters in the franchise.
Yes, definitely. And we've sort of talked a little bit about the fact that people often compare the Incredibles to the characters of the Fantastic Four,
Here.
and I sort of said that I didn't really see that comparison just because there's only so many powers that you can choose from, and they just so happen to pick a couple that are part of the Fantastic Four, and the fact that they're family, I thought it was a bit far fetched. But there is one scene in this film that is just lifted from Fantastic Four from 2005, which is where Elastigirl is being frozen,
Yeah.
to stop her from stretching. That is just absolutely robbed from
Yeah.
Fantastic Four.
It is, and it's quite. I think it's quite explicit that it is right, and there is a lot of like I sort of see like why people. I can sort of understand both sides, like why some people like yourself believe that it isn't ripped off from Fast Forward, and some people do. It is an interesting one, but I do agree with you that scene definitely feels cheaply robbed as well. And I'm trying to think of any other scenes in particular. I mean, it's hard to pick out because that's the only really explicit scene.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really say like all of them all banding together to fight this one force because I mean that's just every superhero
Yeah,
film. Like
yeah.
I think it takes a lot of bits and pieces from different superhero films, but for people to say that like this is the best Fantastic Four film, I think it's a bit of a stretch. I mean, obviously
A
not this film, The
stretch.
Incredibles, definitely not. Classic. Yeah, definitely not this film though. Like no one's saying this is the best Fantastic Four film. Obviously, I mean the first one,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
actually a good film. I mean, this isn't a bad film. Like we'll give our final thoughts at the end.
Sure.
Uh, but just to move on, I am glad that obviously moments before we see Elastigirl being frozen by Screenslaver, there is the reveal that it was actually Evelyn all along.
What?
Who would have fucking
You would have
thought?
thought it.
Uh, yeah, and I was glad that it wasn't at least horrifically late in the film. I think it was about like an hour and 15 into like a 2 hour film,
Yeah,
so it didn't come horrifically late, thankfully.
sure. It's a good point. It's a really good point.
Like,
And
I'm glad they didn't string the audience along like pretending that she wasn't.
yeah, yeah. And I think the screenslaver idea is good. Like I like the whole hypnosis idea, but I think it's such a like downgrade from Syndrome.
Yeah, I mean it's such a cool character design, like with the mask, like
Oh
it looks
yeah.
like it's sort of like a flat gas mask, like it looks amazing.
She never
And
explored
it,
this
it's
syndrome.
just so it's such a bad execution.
I agree, completely, man. Like, I think I think there's a lot of villains you could have went with. Like, you could have went with like Jack, like you said, or Syndrome, or Dash, or even like Bon Voyage or something. I would think would have been pretty funny. I don't know.
Yeah, I would have loved to see a development of that character. And obviously, sort of a staple of Pixar films, it's sort of 50-50, between some of the best villain plots that I've ever seen. Syndrome is probably one of the best examples of a
Sure.
comic book movie villain, and this is probably one of the worst. Like I've written it like a multi-sentence diatribe, and it probably makes about as much sense as her plan, but I'll try and make
Go
sense of it
for it,
by
man.
reading
Go
it
for
to you.
it.
So if I had to compare her villain plot to any other film, I would probably compare it to Eddie Izzard's plot from Cars 2, because I think it follows the same like baffling logic that you do everything in your power to get everyone's attention towards something and like get them to trust something, like only to destroy people's trust in it. But if you had never brought their attention to it in the first place, they never would have found trust in it for you to need to destroy
Yeah,
that
it's a
trust.
great point.
So
It's a great point.
if she had just done nothing and not created all the technology that she does to help the superheroes gain the trust of the public, then
A
then
great point.
superheroes would have never existed. Like if very early on, if she had just, we find out that Evelyn is obviously a screenslaver, so she had control. She had control of the train, so she could have just crashed the train and killed all those people with like Elastigirl just watching on, and then people would have immediately been like, "Oh well, superheroes are useless."
Yeah,
But
it's a
they
great
had her.
point, mate.
She had her save the train, and she had her save the ambassador. They had superheroes get like 1 inch close to becoming legal before she plans on making them illegal forever. It's like,
Yeah.
but they're illegal now.
Yeah, exactly.
Just deflate all trust that there is. Don't build
You've
up the
already won.
trust only to destroy it. It's
Yeah,
just baffling. I
it
just don't
is.
understand it on any level.
And you're right, buddy, completely. Because I think Screensaver does have a lot of potential, but it's just wasted by like you've already won, Evelyn. They're already illegal, pretty much.
Yeah, like I don't know what she's fighting for. Like why would you put so much effort into getting everyone's opinion to be positive, like to bring them down? It's like they're
Yeah,
already down.
great
There's already
point.
been a huge incident. Like you talk about, people using like politicized images of like the scenes after the battle. It's just like
Sure.
put more images of that out. Like sow the seed of doubt. Like don't like make like a horrifically stupid plan where you have people making a public declaration on TV where they're clearly under mind control.
It's a great point, mate. I agree with everything you've said. It's a real letdown of that for the film. That's probably the biggest criticism I suppose we could give it.
Yeah, I'd say a close second criticism is Winston's idea to like put every single powerful person on a ship, like on one boat, every single powerful person in the world. Yeah, no one's gonna bomb that. No
Yeah,
one at all.
yeah, like
You fucking idiot.
I tell you what, though, I really enjoy the Frozone versus Super scene in the film. It's just not long enough, though.
Yeah, I would say yeah. Every glimmer of hope or potential in this film, it just doesn't last long enough.
Yeah, I know, and like, even in the final scene, like Mr. Incredible is struggling to beat other like strong supers. I was like, what are you doing, Bob? What are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I would say aside from character dynamics like with Edna and Jack, which I found probably the most heartwarming and funny of the film. I
Yeah.
would say my favorite joke of the film is where the character of Crush crushes all the pipes around Bob, and he's like, "You want me to uncrush?" Like I don't know why. I just love that so much. He's like, "Would I ask you to unpunch someone?" Which I thought is a very fair point.
It's a good point, actually. That's quite a good line.
I mean, it depends whether his powers work like Magneto, because then I guess he could uncrush it.
Yeah, yeah, I suppose so. That's interesting. See, that's the thing about the supers. Apart from like Void, none of them are really given backstories.
Yeah, and I was just severely underwhelmed. If you're gonna introduce like a new generation of superheroes, like actually do it. Don't just show them visually and be like they exist.
Yeah,
It just felt lazy.
it did, man. It did.
And I will say, when I was in the cinema and Evelyn sort of like basically like got like hurtled out of her jet, and she was like falling to her death, I like almost cheered. I was like,
Yes.
wow, Pixar really went for it. Well, because I mean, I thought, well, they sucked Syndrome into a jet engine, so it's not out of their wheelhouse to have her fall to her death from a jet.
Yeah.
So I was like, yes, yeah, let her die,
Yeah.
yes. And
Yeah.
then when Elastigirl saved her, I was a bit disappointed.
Yeah.
I
That's
wanted to see
that's a
blood
good
spilled.
one.
I don't
Okay.
know why. Like whenever it comes to kids films, I'm just so bloodthirsty. And like, so are you. You're just like
Doc.
you're like fucking Doc Brown get shot.
That's what we do at the Movie Mates channel. That's what we do.
100%. Did you have any thoughts on the narrative of the film, or did you have any opinions to share?
Nothing more from me, mate. Anything you'd like to share?
Well, just wanted to bring up the fact that, as I said, yeah, Brad Bird had said that they the production of the film was cut short by a year because it was brought up in the production slate by a year to replace the release date of Toy Story 4. So they switched release dates. Toy Story 4 then was released in 2019. This was released in 2018. So they did lose a year of production. So Brad Bird said that they had to cut a few plot lines, but I don't. This film isn't lacking in plot. It's just that the plot it has isn't very good.
Yeah.
So like I don't think adding more things to this film makes it better. I think it just would probably make it overcrowded. Like it's already 2 hours long. Like it doesn't need more.
That worries me. What was it? How messy was it going to be with all these plot lines and Brad Bird's original envision of the film? So that does concern me.
Yeah, I mean this was already the longest Pixar film ever to my knowledge. It was an hour and 58 minutes, and it was kind of a difficult sit through. Like it's not a terrible film. It's just that's too long for
I
like
agree.
one for a kids film. Because you're meant to keep their attention, and I don't think you could for 2 full hours. And
Yeah,
just for any film, like I think the best films are usually a solid like 90 minutes. Like I don't usually like to feel a really long runtime.
I agree. I think it's especially for kids films and animated films. It's when you start hitting that like 1 hour 40 mark. It's always that 1 hour 40 for me is when you feel the runtime. Artemis Fowl was 1 hour 35, and that was a slug.
Oh, it felt like 9 hours. It
It
was
did.
horrific.
It did. It did. Oh god. Ugh. Go
Did
check
you have
out
any
our
final
Artemis Fowl
thoughts?
review.
Yes, check out the movie. Check out, or we can just call it Callum groaning for 20 minutes. Uh, so Matthew, I'd love to hear your rating of the film.
So I think in general, mate, I think this film has a lot of potential. It has a lot of good stuff in there, and but however, I do think it fails to recapture the magic of the first. Like there are some really humorous moments in there, like when Violet sees her boyfriend or her crush in the restaurant, like all the water just comes out of her face. I think that's a moment
Yes.
we enjoy, and also but having said that, like we've sort of said, the film abandons the 1960s aesthetic, and it just feels like a film set in 2020 to me. There's so much modern technology, and I really dislike that. That's my biggest gripe for the film. So I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10. Very disappointing, but I would still like a third one.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with everything you said. I think we largely agree that it's not a bad film. It's
Yeah,
just probably one of the most underwhelming experiences we've had.
yeah,
Uh, and yeah, it just falls short of the original. I,
completely
I
agree.
would say the action scenes are incredible. Like not only I did not mean the pun once more. They're amazing.
Yeah,
I love to see them, and they are an improvement on the original. And they're great for any film. Including an animation film or a kids film. If these animation scenes were used in any kind of film, they'd be astounding.
absolutely.
So I love almost everything about it, but it does just it's missing something, and you have to take in you have to take nostalgia and enjoyment into your opinion of the quality of the film. So
Completely
I would
fair.
definitely agree with you. I would give it a solid 7 out of 10.
I thought you had some amazing points in there, Callum. I think we have sort of similar opinions in that one. So I think we'd both like a third one, wouldn't we?
Yeah, definitely, because I think they can do better. Like there was a huge amount of potential in this film.
Yeah, if there a third one was to be created, I would sort of expect a time jump. I don't know, something about the time jump. I think if you're gonna do it, you probably should have done it already. So I think Brad Bird will probably do a time jump like for a few years.
I think they'd have to.
Yeah, agreed, man. So, did you want to move on to our third and final film of the day?
Yes. So our third film for the fuck my life. Don't worry, I'm just. So our third film for today is Onward, released in 2020. A film that I don't believe either of us had the chance to see in the cinema,
No,
because by the time we probably would have been expecting to, coronavirus shut down the cinemas. So I would have loved to have seen this film in the cinema because I had high expectations for it, and I am underwhelmed, which is, as I said, a theme for today.
you know what it is, man. Like, I think this film has so much potential, and I love the universe it builds. And maybe it's because the director's the same as Monsters University. That's why I like it, because it feels very similar to that film for me.
Yes, I agree with you. It does have the very similar energy of sort of using mythology and monsters, or our perception of monsters to create a brand new universe. And I would say, sort of as you said, it does very effectively build an expansive universe, and it does it in a way that I'm not usually a fan of, which is it sort of uses, has an animated sequence at the beginning, overlaid with Chris Pratt in narration,
Sure.
doing very 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 heavy exposition for this universe. But I don't know why it just really worked for me, which it
Absolutely.
wouldn't usually. But I thought it was pretty incredible world building.
Absolutely, and as we've said, like the animation in Pixar is always top notch. But I think there's something about this film. It's animated really well. However, in a similar sort of way that we've said about The Good Dinosaur, I think it looks so realistic in terms of the scenery. However, the character designs remind me so much of like the Monsters University kind, where it's sort of like a weird juxtaposition for me.
Yeah, definitely. I think they look like weird, like felt,
Smurfs.
toys or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like they don't match the background. I definitely agree with you. Like there are these huge expansive landscapes with these like weird blue characters. It just doesn't fit. It doesn't gel well.
Yeah.
Uh, and I would say my biggest gripe with this film is that this was the one Pixar film, and I've mentioned it a lot, but this is the one that I could not get past it, where the voice actors are just Tom Holland and Chris Pratt,
I agree.
and I
100%.
could not get past it. And what
I,
is baffling to me is I have this complaint in a lot of films where, say, like I'll give you an example of a very weird example, but there's a film called
Go for it.
Time Freak which stars Asa Butterfield and Sophie Turner, and they're both English actors, and
Yeah.
they're having both English actors do American accents, and I'm like, but if both of your leads are both English, why would you have them both do American accents?
Yeah.
I get if one of them was English, one was American, you have them both doing the same accent, that's fair.
Great
But
point.
why would you hire two English actors to do a fake accent? And why would you ever hire a voice actor who doesn't have the accent that you want? So he's doing a bad American accent, like
Yeah.
in your Pixar voice animation film.
Yeah.
It's just baffling to me. Like, surely you would just hire someone with the voice that you want, not someone to put on the voice that you want.
It's weird because Tom Holland, for me, I think his American accent in the Spider-Man movies is okay. It's pretty good. But in this film,
Yeah,
where he's a voice actor, you'd think he'd have more time to flourish that and sort of nurture that. But I think it comes off totally worse. And maybe that's because we don't see him physically perform that. But something about it didn't sit right with me. And like you said, I think there's a real issue there, and it is ballsy of Pixar to cast two of the biggest actors in Hollywood, both from the MCU, pretty much. And I don't think it works because I think they have great chemistry together, but all I see is Tom Holland and Chris Pratt, and the film even designs the characters like Tom Holland and Chris Pratt.
yeah, exactly. No, it stinks of clout chasing to me. It just seems like
Good
they're using those names to get butts in seats, a phrase that I love. But
point.
it has no merit because they're not an asset to the film. I would say Chris Pratt is by far the better of the two. Because he, he
Yes, yeah,
he
I
fits
agree.
the character to me. But I don't know. There's just a huge disconnect with Tom Holland's voice and the character of Ian. Like I think they thought, oh, who's like nerdy and scrawny, or at least that's the public perception of them, and it's Tom Holland. That is a fair shout, but I don't know. Just in this film, it doesn't connect for me.
I tell you what though, buddy, one of my favorite voice actors in the film is Octavia Spencer as the Manticore, and I thought she was absolutely fantastic. Like she's probably probably one of my favorite actresses in terms of an individual performance. Like she's great and gifted, and she's also from the first
I
Spider-Man movie,
definitely thought you were
wasn't
going to say Spider-Man.
she?
Yeah,
Yeah. But like she, I think she's great in this. She's probably my favorite character in the film.
yeah, I agree with you. I hadn't actually I watched this film, a month or two ago, and I haven't
Yeah,
rewatched it since. I was going to do that this morning, and I opted for a nap instead,
I
and I
respect
think I think I took the better choice.
that.
Uh, but yes, from memory, the Manticore was probably one of the best parts of the film, and I liked seeing her accept her true self by the end.
Agreed, buddy. Agreed. And I think, like we said, like the film does build a really expansive universe. We see like a gang of pixies, and Ian and Barley have to escape from, and we see like unicorns just roaming around the streets eating out of rubbish bins. I think that's really smart world building, and that the unicorns kind of reminded me of, in Monsters University, like the weird like two-headed pigeons.
Yes.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of that, and it was shot very similarly as well. So I suppose that's the same director, the same sort of
Yeah,
idea.
definitely. Yeah, you do see quite a bit of consistency between directors. I think when you watch Pixar films, because
Absolutely.
I do think I think they like to adopt their own style as much as they
Great
can
point, man.
within the animation realm.
It's a great
But
point, buddy.
I thought when I first watched the film that the setup for the quest was actually really interesting. But after rethinking about it after seeing Coco, which obviously came first,
Yeah.
it kind of lacks originality for me because it's
Okay.
very similar in the vein that they're endeavoring to see a deceased family member that you've never met. It just doesn't come off with the same originality as it would have uh when I hadn't seen Coco.
Mate, that's a fantastic point because family hasn't really been a theme that Pixar have explored since The Incredibles. So it's interesting that, sort of 2018 and 2020, they've sort of both went for the family route. And maybe do you think it feels like a bit too soon for them to focus on this theme?
I mean, obviously these are, first these are family films, so I understand family as a theme, but I thought just the idea of visiting or meeting a deceased family member, I thought that was too similar, too quick,
It's a
and
great
that
point,
they're
buddy.
already probably doing that again with Soul starring Jamie Foxx, which is coming out in November, where he also visits a spirit dimension when he dies. So
Okay.
it's also in a similar vein.
Interesting, man. And one thing that being said, I can definitely imagine this movie would be very touching for someone who had lost their parents. And apparently, the film, the director had mentioned that it was inspired because of the death of his dad and how his brother and him dealt with that. And I think it's a really heartbreaking message. And you can see sort of how you can see the director has passion for this project, and I really respect that.
Yeah, I do. So did you want to get into sort of the big message of the film that is sort of unveiled by the end, which is obviously the importance of the relationship between Ian and Barley?
Yeah,
And I have to say that I do I love the sentiment of uh Barley acting as a father figure for Ian, but a part of me, just it didn't sit right with me that Barley got to say goodbye to his dad,
Ian
but
didn't.
Ian never got to even say hello.
Yeah,
And I just feel like
I
throughout the
agree.
film, Ian is the one that wanted this more, and I think he earned that moment. And obviously, it's important that he gets to, he's the only one that can do magic, so he has to be the one to defeat the dragon. But I feel like I would have felt it was more rewarding if Ian realized that Barley was like his dad, and
I
Barley
agree.
had realized that he was like a father to Ian, and then they'd shared that moment, they'd hugged, they'd had their moment, their moment of father and son, and then neither of them get to meet the dad.
I
But it felt
agree.
kind of cheap to like give Barley that moment and not Ian. Like,
Only
I
for
think to
Ian to
choose,
watch as well.
yeah, I don't know, that came off as heartbreaking to me, and
Okay.
it was sort of meant to be like a warm message. Oh, well, he realized that Barley is like his father, so it's not important that he gets to meet his father. It's like, well, then you should both realize that, and then
Yeah,
it would have sat right. It would have sat better with me if neither of them had got that moment. It just didn't feel
it's a
right
great
to me
point, man.
that Barley got it and Ian didn't.
You know what it is, man? I think that's a really great point because a lot of people in Pixar, and we've talked about this before, like Pixar intentionally creating heartbreaking moments at the end of every film. But I think this is the one moment where I think it's unintentional, because we sort of felt the heartbreak from Ian's perspective, in the sense that he really wanted it but didn't achieve it, and he is just left to watch. So I thought that message wasn't great. I thought the overall message of father and son between Ian and Barty was good, but I thought the fact that, like you said perfectly, Callum, like either have them both meet their dad or have none of them meet their dad. I think that's the key.
Yeah, I 100%. Did you have anything further on the film? Because honestly, as I said, I didn't rewatch it, so my notes are not thorough.
Well, one thing I wanted to mention was, and I've talked about this before, on how what film did I mention, like, copied sort of Shrek 4, and I did, was it a Pixar film that I had mentioned? What was it?
We you said that Avengers Endgame copied Shrek 4, but I
Maybe
think
it was
you
that.
also said that a few days ago about another film. I think
I can't
that
remember
you
what it
were
was.
like, ugh, copying the Shrek franchise again.
Yeah, this film sort of does the same, in the sense that, like, it's sort of like a time runs out, sort of like character will fade away after a day sort of scenario. And both are animated films. I thought it was a bit on the nose, and both are sort of set in like fairy tale universe. And I think universes, so I thought it was quite explicit that this is sort of like it sort of feels like, to me, this film could be set in like the Shrek universe. It's that explicit for me. So I don't know. Did you get that?
I mean, I didn't get that because I mean, to be honest, I know this may crush your soul and end our friendship. I've only seen Shrek 4 the once.
Just
It
the
doesn't hold
once.
that special place in my heart. So I'm not watching things with like Shrek colored glasses. I'm not comparing everything I watched to Shrek 4. So no, Matthew, it didn't cross my mind,
I
but
respect your honesty.
I'll look out for that in the future.
I respect your honesty. Like, I think the film, like, there are some really good callbacks in there. Like, we see Barty's van Guinevere, and he gets destroyed, and he gets a new one, which I like that. And like we said, like, Octavia Spencer's the Manticore is probably our favorite character, and she does have some moments of levity. Like, she doesn't she have like a tavern that she doesn't want to get bad criticism from as well?
Yeah.
She's
Yeah, I love that character so much. That
absolutely.
she's a revelation, Octavia Spencer.
Absolutely, man. And she's one of those actors who has just doesn't age at all.
No, not at all. I mean, it seems like she's been the same age for the last 20 years. I mean, she looks identical now as to how she did in Spider-Man 1, which
Yeah,
was
I know.
18
It's
years ago.
incredible. Incredible. But no, I don't have any more to say, really, man. Like I said, I don't have that much notes on this one. So did you want to head into ratings then, buddy?
Yes. So, as I said, I was somewhat underwhelmed. It just didn't play out how I would have liked. I couldn't get past the voice acting, and the message to me was somewhat flawed. It felt the father son message, as you said, uh, what like is a great sentiment. I love that so much, but the execution I think was a bit flawed. So I'd give the film an 8 out of 10.
I respect that. I mean, I thought that was a great review, buddy, and I agree. Like, the sentiment is there, and I think that it's clear the director has a lot of passion for this project, and the animation is stellar. The score's pretty good, I think, and yeah, like I said, it's probably very similar tonally to Monsters University, so that's why I think I like it more than I probably would have if it wasn't. So I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10, sort of similar to The Incredibles 2 for me. I think there's room for a sequel here, but I think the voice acting, strangely, is what lets it down.
Yeah, I've never had this experience with a voice acting before. There is one other example where I can think of where I'm sort of baffled by their decision to cast this person in the DC animated universe.
Yeah,
Uh, Jason O'Mara, who's an Irish actor, plays Batman, and you can very much tell that he's not American, and I think it really lets it down just because I think why would you ever cast someone who doesn't have the accent you want? So it's always going to come even if they have the best fake accent, it's still fake.
yeah,
Why would you bother like risking them doing a bad accent when you can just hire an American?
yeah. We'll
I
definitely have
I,
to
I
do. We'll definitely have to do like a podcast in bad accents or something. That'll be funny.
100% we need to talk about A Streetcar Named Desire.
Stella.
I mean, I have told you like I fully need subtitles to watch that film. Like
Man,
it's incomprehensible.
I just watch everything on Netflix with subtitles. I love it.
Oh yeah, me too. Like apparently that's weird, but I don't know. I'm always watching stuff at like 2 a.m. So I kind of need to.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. But listen, do you want to wrap up the episode then and tell the viewers what our future episodes will have in store?
Yes, sure. So
Yeah.
do you want me to throw out our near future plans?
Let's do it, buddy. Let's do it.
So I believe the next episode that we'll be working on is unconventional romances.
Absolutely.
If that suits Matthew. And
Absolutely.
do you want me to throw out the films that we're hoping to talk about?
Let's do it, dude. Let's do it.
So we're hoping to cover The Graduate, Harold and Maude, Her, and Lars and the Real Girl. So those are four big movies that I wanted to tick off my film bucket list, and that I thought Matthew would really enjoy watching.
Absolutely.
Harold and Maude is probably the one that I'm most looking forward to, and Lars and the Real Girl I'm really looking forward to just because I want to see another Ryan Gosling performance.
I'm looking
Uh,
forward to The Graduate the most because 500 Days of Summer, man. You know me.
of course, and her has Joaquin Phoenix, so I'm sure that's another
Yeah.
incredible performance that he turns in. So I'm absolutely I can't wait. We'll definitely give a disclaimer that we're not judging these romances.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, like we're not the ones calling them unconventional. Society is,
Yeah,
and we
yeah.
need to overthrow society and have say that it's fine for 20-year-old to date an 80-year-old. It's fine. You know,
Yeah,
it's just
absolutely,
not.
man. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it's just considered unconventional. So you'll hopefully be seeing that in a few days, and I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to recording that. And then now that we've capped off our Pixar series, if Matthew's okay with it, we'll be moving on to Walt Disney Animation Studios.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. That would be fun. What films then for the first one?
It'll be the first four that have been released, starting with Snow White and the Seven Dwarves, and then there's a few that I've never even heard of before. One's called like the Three Caballeros or something, which means
Cool.
like the three Spanish gentlemen. Like I don't know. I think a few of them are going to be rough. I don't think I'm going to enjoy many of the early ones. I think there's going to be a solid like 3 weeks where we're quite miserable with the ones that we're watching.
But yeah, that sounds great, pal. So uh I'm actually at work on Tuesday. So did what day suited you for the unconventional romances? Monday or Wednesday?
Wednesday would probably be a better shout.
Awesome. So yeah, expect the unconventional romances sort of Wednesday or Thursday, guys. And yeah, I'm actually strangely emotional about this. It's been our longest saga so far, so it's been a good one, man, hasn't it? It's been a lot of good and bad films in here.
Yeah, so we've covered 18 films, so that probably means that we should have done 7 episodes for the MCU. So we'll learn our lesson for the next big franchise that we cover.
Absolutely, buddy. Well, thank you to everyone who has supported this saga. Really do appreciate it. As always, the movies that we've talked about throughout Pixar are in the Pixar playlist, and I'd imagine we'll probably add the unconventional romances into the romantic comedies playlist, but maybe entitle the romantic comedies playlist like romance or something.
Yeah, sure.
No worries. So yeah, thank you to everyone who has liked, subscribed, and commented. Thank you, Callum, for introducing me to many of these movies. I really appreciate it, and I had a great time with this saga, man. It's been good.
Thank you for being so you know fine with me throwing out suggestions. You know, I'm basically just.
You're a good choice. You have good choices in there, man.
I mean, you know, I like to give some variety to the podcast, so sometimes I throw out some absolutely shit films for us to watch.
Artemis
Uh,
Fowl.
ja-
Check that out.
Fucking hell, I can't believe I'm like at fault for that. I think I'll make it up for you. I think I'll make it up to you like when we cover The King of Staten Island, because apparently that's a great film.
Awesome.
So
Awesome, man.
that's another new release that I was hoping we could cover in the next few weeks.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, yeah, thank you to everyone who's supported us. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Email us, and yeah, see you, Callum. See you, everyone. Take care, and bye
See you,
bye.
Matthew. Bye bye.